Do. Well, hello there. Oh, hi, everybody. It's time for the local 8-bit computer club. I think I'm the first one here. So come in, settle down, settle in. Welcome. Oh, hi, I'm Brian, and I like to play retro video games. And now I like to try to make retro video games. So we'll see how that goes. Weird, my audio's like not in both ears. What is that all about? Hey, but I hope you're having a good time wherever you're at. Yay, David Akers. What's going on, my friend? Welcome in. Hope you're having a good Sunday or Monday, wherever in the world you are. Originally, my plans, David, was to hook up my Commodore 64 Ultimate. Is it the Ultimate? Is that the one we just got this past year that I got with the Starlight Edition? Commodore 64 Ultimate. For some reason, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, I was planning on doing that. Oh, hi, Before Tank Girl, Lapino. What's going on, friends? It's time for more of your local 8-bit computer club. We usually do this on Friday nights oh no, ads times for really already the ads. Twitch, how many times we talked about this? I said no ads for the first 30 minutes, and then boom, David Akers confirms. So, oh, hi, everybody. Usually we do the 8-bit computer club on Friday nights, but we just had our community event for Mission Deep. And you're welcome to that. If you're just here for the 8-bit computer club, trust me, we've got a great group, a community of like-minded people who maybe not all are into retro stuff, but most of them. So yeah, but I was planning on hooking up the Ultimate and going through some of the Compute magazines. We're still going to do that. So Compute's Gazette. I'm going to repeat myself shortly, but for those who showed up early, I'm going to repeat myself later. But Compute was a gaming, well, not a gaming magazine. It was a 8-bit computer. Was it just 8-bit? All right, I'm going to start all over again. So Compute magazine was for the computer savvy individual of the late 70s. In early 80s, right? But it was very high level, right? It was not high level, low level. I'm glad I did this before everybody got here. I'm glad I did this before everybody got here and embarrassed myself. So you guys are kind of like the early people, kind of, you're getting the beta show, right? So yeah, Compute magazine was a little more advanced usery. How about that? For computers of the time of the mid 70s and into the 80s. Compute's Gazette. Thank you, Jerry. Jerry's here. Thank goodness Jerry Talbert says, you got this. But Compute's Gazette was the one that I'm familiar with because I grew up on the Commodore 64. And at the time I got my Commodore VIC-20, which the Compute's Gazette covered both, I think it covered the PET machines, it covered the VIC-20s, the Commodore 64, but it existed my entire life of my Commodore love, right? And found out recently, I always thought the Compute's Gazette was, I think it's because of Butterfield having so much to do with all this stuff. Jim Butterfield, amazing Canadian Commodore, just amazing person to bring us to, bring the Commodore to the masses. He was Canadian. And so I always assumed, wrongly, for whatever reason over the years, that Compute's Gazette was a Canadian publication. Now, it did have contributions from Canadians and other places around the world, but it mostly was stationed in, just right up the road from me, Greensboro, North Carolina. So Compute's Gazette was, their corporate home was in Greensboro, North Carolina. And my dad lived during the early 90s, which I went up there for. He lived only like 5 miles away from their corporate headquarters. And I think they also probably, I don't know if they distributed everything from there, but it was, yeah, right before Tank Girl, what? North Kakalaki, Compute's Gazette was a North Kakalaki thing, which kind of explained why we had such a lot of access. It seemed like anytime you would go to any of these places, not only was Compute's Gazette a very popular magazine in the Commodore scene to begin with, and others as well, but that was more Compute had more, a little bit of everything. Oh boy, I really made it angry. But I just didn't know that, and that was such connective tissue that I didn't know. So what got me started on the journey was, first of all, I was like, oh, thank you for Thank you for that resub. What got me on my most recent journey with Compute's Gazette is I was looking at some articles for what we've been discussing the last couple of weeks on your local 8-bit computer. David Akers, thank you for the resub. We had been talking about me picking up where I left off when I was like 12, 13, with trying to understand what I was typing in. Hype train! When I was trying to understand what I was typing into my Commodore 64, and I wanted to understand what it was, because I had dreams of when I would type those in, I would type in the games. I'm like, oh, what does this mean exactly? I don't know. It's like some kind of ancient incantation that I don't understand, but I'm typing it in. And when I get through, magic, I got a video game. And what got me excited about it was, I was thinking, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could make my own now that I've gotten older and actually have the understanding that I never had back then. Like Compute's Gazettes was just like, it's magic, man. It was. I didn't understand anything that it was talking about. Yes, so many free games. Thank you, Rent-A-Killer. Thank you for that sub. Thank you. Welcome in. Hope you're having a good Monday or Sunday, where in the world it is for you today. So there. I think I've said most of what I was wanting to say. But we're going to pound that out. But this isn't my local 8-bit computer club. This is your local 8-bit computer club. Local 8-bit computer club. There, I said the words. And what that means is I want you guys to also be bringing something to the table. You don't have to bring anything to the meeting. You can just show up, lurk, do whatever you want to. But man, I'd love to see what you're working on, if anything. Maybe just interested. Maybe just interested to see what Brian's doing. It's like, what is Brian doing? He's always doing something weird. I think I'll come watch him do some weird crap. 14 Girl brings the tater tots. Man, I feel like I was talking a mile a minute there. Warforge, what's going on? Avian says, oh, cool. I don't have to say my dog has eaten my homework. That's right, Avian. It's not that kind of computer club. We're the lovers. We should rename it to your local 8-bit computer lovers club. Yeah, computer lovers club. That sounds, actually, it's getting longer, but I think it is much more precise to what we want. And if we had a real local physical computer club, you better believe there would be a tater tots bar. Computer appreciators. Right now, what we're looking at is the Atari DOS version 3.0. I think one of the last DOS versions you would find on most of these systems. I could be wrong. I wasn't a big Atari person. I was a Commodore 64. And like I had said earlier, my plan was to actually hook up my Commodore 64 Ultimate before we did this, but I just ran out of time. So this is what I had hooked up last, and I thought I would show you guys just something cool I found, because on my journey to make my own 8-bit computer game, part of that's going to be me learning how to program in assembly and learning what tools I have at my disposal. And when I say a video game for an 8-bit computer, I mean the most rudimentary 8-bit computer game that will at least be a proof of concept by the end of the year. That's what I want, at least a proof of concept. At least like a little couple of minutes demo of what gameplay I'm wanting and an idea of where I want to go from there. Now you may say, Brian, do you know any programming? Yeah, I've been programming since I was a kid. Since I was 12 years old, maybe even younger, I've been programming, whether it be what I learned in BASIC or as I went through my career of almost at least 30-something years worth of coding and programming. So I have a good grasp and understanding of programming in general, but I've never used not machine language, even though that often gets mixed in with this. We're going to learn assembly, which is kind of like right there. It's like right next door, because it's impractical to program in machine language, right? So I'm gonna learn a little bit about that. I'm not gonna bore you to death with all the details, but I am gonna give you guys a little look at what I'm kind of doing. And some of you guys may already know all this stuff, or maybe you had an interest because when you were a kid, you also got Compute's Gazette magazines and was like, what am I typing in? What am I typing in? I don't even know what I'm typing right now. I've just typed in 6 pages of data lines that says data and then a bunch of numbers. So we're going to kind of hopefully demystify that a little bit. Yeah, Jerry Tolbert is 100100101. You know, and every time before I start doing this this cast, I keep wanting to I'm slowly building a theme song in my head, and so far it's just a repetitive bullshit. It's just so much fun just to go, it's your 8-bit computer club. You know, it feels like I want to do like a Mickey Mouse thing. 8-bit. So I can't figure it out, but I just I have this desire for some reason to write a stupid song for it. It just feels like it needs, like I get so excited every time I think about it. Travis Travis says binary or title of a song by Clutch. I love me some Clutch. TV Travis says never did learn assembly, but always been fascinated by it. Me too. Same. Also been just fascinated by the 6502's architecture because at the time it was the thing. You know how a lot of us think of like AMD and Intel chips, and you know we got different factors and of the different chips that we've all experienced as we've taken our computer journeys in modern day. But you know the 6502 architecture that was the place to be for the most part, unless you were talking about the Z80 or something. But it was in a lot of machines, and we may talk a little bit of that too, that you may not even realize. So the 6502 chip itself was in a lot of machines that you might not have expected. TV Travis says, oh man, this would be a fun song to do as a way to play with my new key. Ooh, TV Travis, I'm down with that. Eclectic Gamer, what's up? That's one hell of a typing mind, Brian. All right. Whew. I've been so excited about this. I got to slow down for a minute. I feel like I'm just spouting off at the mouth. I want to show you guys so many things that I gotta rein it in a minute and stay focused. All right. So I've been doing all this in my head. So, you know, it's like you've been thinking about it all week, and then you finally get to hang out with your pals, your buddies, your pals. Deep breath. All right. So let's take a look at a series that was on Compute Gazette. So let's get, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start making some show notes. I'll be daggum. I'm going to start making show notes so I can stay on track. I didn't mean for this to blow up into an actual show, but I think this is where it's going to have to eventually be. This stream is going to have to eventually have some type of it's going to have some type of storytelling. I didn't know it was going to be that. I thought it was going to be us just hanging out and chatting, which is going to be that as well. But I really need to theme each one of these episodes and have talking points, some structure, because that's what I mostly do. Because if you don't know, I do podcast. I do Film Sack and I do the Play Retro Show, and I've been doing podcast for almost good God, has it been like 20 years? It has. All right, so yeah, and I've been through oh my gosh, I've put to bed so many podcasts over the years. It just makes me want to cry a little bit. Just remember. Newcomb says, podcast it, baby. I'll listen on my commute. Yeah, Lapino says, get yourself a little 3x5 car with ideas on it. That's not a bad idea. You know what? I also was thinking about maybe we'll write a program to do that. The race says still missed the final score. We talked about those new and indie games. I love doing that. That was that was the Boop Show. The final score was when me, Scott, and Nicole got together and talked about a variety of both new games being released and indie games. And that kind of probably is more what Core does now, just a little bit longer form, because God, that show will get into 4 hours. But I loved all of those podcasts. They just didn't have the momentum that we needed them to have. So let's talk about Compute's Gazette. If you're here at the very beginning of the show, you might have heard that I said that Compute's Gazette was stationed in Greensboro, North Carolina, and where they were at was their main corporate office was only a couple of miles from where my dad lived during the early 90s. And I went up there for a while, and I was right there, right near the legend, the thing that was my buddy, my pal, during the early and mid 80s, Compute's Gazette. And let's take a look, because they relaunched this magazine at the end of last year, somewhere like that, like maybe the middle of last year, like around May. Let me get this to where we can see it. This should be at the top. There we go. This is Compute's Gazette's website. Why is it all funkalicious? That's huge. I don't mean for it to be so huge. Anyway, I've ordered the first issue of this, the print issue from last year, and I'm going to see when it arrives. But you can order both the print or digital version. And look at that. They've got mention of the FujiNet multi-platforming programming. We've talked about that on the Atari 800. But this is the modern incarnation. So I'm going to kind of get into that. But the one I lived with is much older. It is the one that originally came out. And the one, I believe 82, I think was maybe the first one I had seen, somewhere around there. But we're going to look at some of the articles in there, because there were a couple of ongoing articles. Let's see here. Let me minimize this a little bit so it's not all over the screen. Where is my transform? Like Elect Gamer says, boy howdy, do we know about your podcast escapades? that is a fact. Let's see here, 1920 by 1080. That should be a little bit more manageable. Well, you know what? Actually, I think I do 1440 is typically what I do. And then my 1080, that way it fits over in this nice little square space right there. We go. That is more what I'm used to. You know what? I'm going to bring it so that you guys can't see all the crap over there. Nope, don't want to do that. And we'll get back to that. Whatever. Oh, this is not a bill, by the way. So you can go to archive.org and we will look for compute, not computer, computes. It is Computes, by the way. Compute was the name of the company, and then Compute's Gazette was their Commodore-centric magazine. I believe the regular Compute had more generalized stuff, so maybe you knew some more of. I don't know. What did you guys have an Atari? Did you do any of the Atari magazine stuff? Tolbert says it just hit me why I love these streams so much. You're like Bob Ross for programming nerds. It's not far off. It's not far off. I am kind of a Bob Rossi, aren't I? I could do a Bob Rossi. What he said. Sector says, that's why I didn't know the magazine. Yeah, that's right. Compute was General Computers of the time, says Newcomb. Sector says, I know nothing of the C64. David Aker says, Atari had a couple of Atari-only magazines, including Antic. That was the one that I was looking at that seemed to have the most traction in the Atari Age forums. And so I'm going to also dig into those. Eclectic Gamer says they had an Atari 800 XL. I have a 600 XL that needs some love. And now I'm thinking about Bob Ross, and I'm thinking maybe I need some squirrels. Maybe I should keep some squirrels on set. I think it's a good plan. All right. So I do remember that it wasn't too far along in the run of Compute's Gazette that they started offering the 5 1/4 floppy disk, right? And at that point in time, it was like, hey, are you tired of typing in all of these programs we keep showing you? Well, we got good news for you. We're going to now distribute them on disk so you don't have to. I am curious about the price difference, but let's flip over to here. And this is the first issue. After the first issue, number 1 in 1983, so it wasn't 82, it was 83. They had a short hiatus, I believe, from, oh, maybe not. Well, so I remember reading that there was a short hiatus, like a 3-month hiatus between the first one and the second one. So maybe they, July, June, July, August, that looks like in line. So maybe they had like a issue 0 or something maybe I need to look for. But any who's-its, let's take a look here in our programming section. We had stuff for programming in BASIC, which is what it was always pushing for, right? I mean, you paid Bill Gates for, the Microsoft BASIC. You might as well hook it up, right? Power Basic 64, machine language for beginners. So this was this right here, machine language for beginners, a hidden world, Richard Mansfield. This is where we are probably going to start our journey to make a at least functional prototype game this year. Now, I'm not going to show you everything. I'm not going to type everything on screen and everything, but I am going to check in once a week and show you my progress. But if you're wanting to follow along and maybe also learn, I've been trying to emulate my life from that time. So I'm fascinated. If I had been born earlier and was mature enough and had the availability of time to pursue programming on the Commodore 64, what would have been my likely path? Because if you go online and you talk to the old heads, the people who were around at that time, I'm also old head, by the way, they don't have this is the de facto way we did it. So like in modern times on programming, there's still like, you could do it this way, or you can do it that way. And it was no different back then. But there usually is like one very popular thing. Like, it's like, oh, what's everybody programming with right now? If I was wanting to start to get into programming, you could probably pretty easily find what's the most popular tools, what's the most active communities, and kind of go in that direction because we're online. Then, unless I had an apprenticeship with somebody who was doing computer things, or if I had the opportunity to go work somewhere, which I did not, or at least I didn't know I could have. I could have went, Compute's Gazette was in Greensboro, North Carolina. That was close enough. I would have got on the train and showed up my 12-year-old self and said, hey, I'm going to be your Doogie Howser. But I didn't. So my idea here is I'm going to emulate what I would do in real life if I had been old enough, mature enough to do that. And Compute's Gazette would have probably been my place, right? That I would have went for information about Commodore 64 and how to get started. And I think one of the things that I would have noticed is while going through this would have been noticing that that they were really, Richard Mansfield was pushing people to more advanced programmers, because they included the basic programming stuff in here as well. But the more advanced ones would go through this path. So I really feel like this is probably the path that I would have taken. The Ray says, what? Eating lots of bad food and it's not affecting it at all? That's right. Well, what were we talking about eating bad food for? I love it. Yeah, it's not affecting. Bob Ross of Retro Computing. Come on in. Oh. I don't know. Bob Ross talked a lot, right? But he kept it at he kept a pace like this. Maybe I should also take that pacing in mind as well. And then we can also paint with some happy little ones and zeros. I think it's a good idea. And I'm definitely getting a squirrel. All right. The Wraith, right. Emulating what your life was back then, right? So I've been taking a journey on emulating the hardware. And now of all the video games that I played or did not play back in the day. And so now I'm taking that philosophy of how to make it fairly accurate and emulate the experience, or the possibility of the experience of the time. 410 Girl says, I'm glad I had a group to go to. My dad and I would go, and I think we just discussed the new magazines. The sad thing is we had no group because we were really too young in my core group to really do anything. I mean, like I said, we were 10, 12 years old, and each of my friends on the road I lived on had a different type of computer. And so we could talk about computers in general. Like one friend had an Apple, one friend had a Tandy. I think one person had, well, of course, I had the Commodore stuff. There was one other system too. I'm trying to remember what one of my other friends had. Anyway, none of us had the same computer, so we couldn't go, Jay, look, ba. So, 14 Girls says, yeah, I was 12, 13-ish. I was probably the only kid there. David Akers says, I was in a super rural town, but thankfully my best friend also had an Atari, like I did, and we knew a couple of other Atari folks, so we could trade games and learn from each other that way. Though it was nothing formal. Most of my contact with people who are actually enjoying the programming part. My other friends had computers, but they mostly used them for video game stuff, right? They were playing games. I don't know if they did any type-ins or not, but I didn't get that. I didn't get a sense that's what they were doing with their computers. The only source I really had was my dad. My dad was divorced from my mom, and so I only got to see him, and he traveled a lot, so I only got to see him occasionally. And so then it was also a touching point for me and my dad, a connection for me and him. So it was something that I just loved because me and him had experienced that already one time during the 70s when he brought home an Atari Pong, and I first discovered you could have the TV, you could control things going on a TV. That blew my mind. But it was a connecting point too. Plus, we were just both really interested into small electronics. I was always taking stuff apart, putting it back together. You guys probably were too. That's probably why you're here. You're also similar kind of thinking, right? Eclectic Gamer says, so you want to relive the past but in a different version of the multiverse. That's right. I'm not nostalgic for going back and going, I'm going to recreate my experience. I want to recreate the possibility of what it might have looked like if I was a little bit older and capable, because I remember how I felt inside, and it's driven me to program. But, assembly fell away so quickly that by the time I was old enough to start really understanding and went through enough school and understood everything enough to really start creating things that were useful, all that was gone. It was well past. So, but I haven't forgot that desire that I had to want to do it, right? And it's always itched in the back of my head. It's always itched. It's like, I'm like, oh, if I could just the dreams I had to do it. And now I have the possibilities, right? I have the hardware. I've got resources that I don't have a lot of time, but I'm making the time. And I have people who share the love of the game. So, I mean, I'm finally getting to realize my local 8-bit computer club that didn't exist at the time. Tolbert says, I still take things apart and put them back together. I do too. I still love taking things apart and putting them back together, seeing how things work. Small electronics are my jam. That's what I love. I'm like, yeah, give me more of that. All right. So I'm just going to point you in the direction. So if you go to if you look for the Compute Gazette archives, there's several different places, but I just happen to like archive.org. And I've went here, and I'm going to be following along with Richard Mansfield's Machine Language for Beginners, A Hidden World. Now, this series, I believe, ran for close to maybe 2 years. I'll find out. I'll find an exact timeline, but I estimated out how long it might take me to kind of go through, because they're making a game. He's making a game eventually. I don't know if I haven't actually put all the highlights, but it looks like they're making a game. So they're making use of each piece, right? The graphics, the collisions between the sprites. I mean, they cover all of that. I've kind of briefly looked over it. Also, that Richard Mansfield wrote a book for machine language as well, and I may order that at the end, but I'm going to try not to inject that into my exploration. But probably once a week, I'll kind of give you an update on how far I've made it, and I'm probably just going to do. I'm probably just going to do this in Vice. If you're not familiar with Vice, it's an emulator for Commodore software. So like I think Vice does pet stuff. I think it even does Chem. Does it even do Chem 1 stuff? I got an app for Chem 1 on my freaking phone. That's real old school. That didn't even have like a video output, right? If I remember correctly. But that's where I'm headed. Yeah. Oh, Dave Aker says it's a good book. It's a good book. I'm interested. I'm gonna eventually get to read the whole thing. Yeah. Eclectic Gamer says, I can tell it has a big significance for you because it was a way for you to connect and bond with your father. That's right. It kind of like it crossed two paths. It's not just because of my dad, but it really did help that I had no one else that I could look to and that could talk about it. Like, you know, if I program something in, be like, hey, Mom, come here, look at this. Now, my mom loved me. She loved everything. She loved all my stuff. Super supportive of everything I'd done. But, you know, she didn't really care. There's a big difference between I love you and I love that you love that versus that's cool, you know? And so my dad was like, that's cool. And so that's a little different type of relationship. Zoe, oh, what's up, Zoe? I do the construction in reverse. I put a bacon sandwich together and my mouth takes it apart. I like that. So you're doing some disassembly. You're doing some disassembly language with your tongue. But I do plan on getting the book. And if you do decide to take this journey along with me and you decide to kind of bring some of your experience to the group, you don't have to do it every week. I mean, if you just want to take a look and just say, hey, Brian does that thing with the thing and I'm going to look at it. Yeah, I'm going to look at it too. But most of it's going to be just an exploration and a time to touch base with what I'm how my progress is on the gaming. And we might do some fun stuff too, because I recently received, I'll show you. It is, what is it called? It's not called Animation Station. Animation, you know what? I'm going to pull this up because I want to talk about this on the Play Retro show this week. I've had so many great individuals who listen to the show. And lots of times people like, I've been listening to you since 2005, back when you were doing Extra Life Radio. And they'll go like, and I got this thing, and it's just sitting in a box. And man, you got me fired up about how excited you are about this stuff. And I just don't have the time or the space to do this. And they'll send me stuff, right? They're like, I want you to do something with this and love it, because you know what? I'm gonna love it, man. I'm gonna try to get operational and make it do its thing. So that's always fun and a good way to connect. But let's take a look here. I believe it was, let's see who sent this to me. Okay, there we go. Progs 1200 sent me this Animation Station. I'm gonna pull it up now. I want to make sure that I didn't dox them, right? All right. Get this pulled up here as soon as I find the thing. You got to click on another thing and then click on the thing again. Thanks, OBS. All right, there we go. This is the Animation Station computer pad and graphics program. So if you don't know, I also like to do, I do artwork. I've been, it's one of the things that me and Scott Johnson, how we first got together, first all of our love for computers and, podcasting and comics and everything else. So it's a commonplace for us. But this is an Animation Station computer design pad and graphics program. This one's for the Commodore 64. I have one already for the Atari 800. I believe it uses the same interface, but has different software. Now, I've received this, and I have not opened the box and got it out, but I am. And so we'll probably have at least one of these meetings that we have where I will break this out and we will actually see the practicality of using something like this versus just typing in, right? I mean, you can make graphics a couple of ways. Assembly is definitely a lower level language that there are tools that you could use to do some of the same things, but it wouldn't be as efficient, and there's only so many resources on an 8-bit computer that you can use. So to really make something very playable and fantastic, you got to kind of really get down there to as close to the bare metal as you can. And so we're going to see if using something like this is more like a modern workflow, right? You're thinking an artist needs to interface with a computer, and is there enough power there and convenience that will allow me to use something like this? Does it connect through DB9? Yes, yeah. So it does, correct. It just connects in that little Atari-looking 9-pin thing you're so used to, the little Atari 9-pin joystick that you would plug in. So it plugs in the same way. So this is a Suncom item, and I've got it, like I said, I've got it for the Atari 800, which I already had, but I did not have the one for the Commodore 64. And we're gonna explore that and see if it'll work on both. And we'll see. Yeah, Talbert says kind of like a modified joystick. From my understanding, how these things worked. So there were light pins that you could use on monitors of the time and kind of draw, right? And then there were these types of devices. I've only seen a couple of them, and I own a couple. And I think they kind of like done like an Etch-a-Sketch thing, right? So you would use, it kind of has like the equivalence of using paddles, right? So these take the ideas of how the computer takes paddle input and applies it to this device. I don't understand exactly all the inner workings, but I hope to, because it's probably going to determine whether or not it's going to be a useful tool or not. Now, because it's probably going to be a better workflow and faster for me just to take out some graph paper and color in some squares and do some math. It's going to be much more controllable, but we're going to see if there's any way, because I have a feeling this is going to be very sloppy. I've played a little bit with some of these things, and they're very sloppy. Before Tango says, my dad made a light pen out of a ballpoint pen. Oh, that's interesting. Do you still have that? That would be great. I'd love to see some pictures of that. Puppy, what's going on? Yeah, so it's kind of like a computer Etch-a-Sketch, right? So kind of imagine trying to draw a Mastapeza with with an Etch-a-Sketch. It can be done. It can be done. But it may not be super efficient, right? Before Tinker says, no, I wish he still had that thing, right? So that's going to be part of the exploration. That's going to be like more of the stuff we'll probably sit down. I'll probably review stuff that I've done. Like, you don't want to sit and watch me program. I mean, we may do it one time. Like, you can just kind of get a whole idea of like, oh, that's what Brian does. And I'll probably talk through it. And we probably won't even get 3 lines put in before we get through doing everything. Because we'll be chit-chatting and doing, talking about the ideas and everything. But yeah, but most of this is going to be to hang out, to show you guys when I have something functional, if I've run into problems. Because, I mean, right now, this Atari 800, right, it is functional. It is on. It is operational. I got a little light down here. It says and it says that I'm typing in, but 3 weeks ago, this thing was not functional at all, and I had to bake the pokey chip, right? And so if you don't know anything about that, we'll talk a little bit about that. But I basically had to put the pokey chip in the oven for 30 minutes at 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and what they say is a reflow of the processor. The pokey chip is the one that does some of the graphics, some of the audio stuff, but also handles a lot of the keyboard inputs, except for the function buttons, and I think the break button, which is how I knew to suspect the pokey chip to begin with. And I did the cheat where I baked it and reflowed it, and it's a matter of time for that thing the wheels fall off, right? So this is all going to be very precarious, and so we'll probably do a little bit of hardware stuff as we go along, because I'm sure there's going to be some stories that are going to be told through, through my challenges of trying to do all this. Because I could just emulate all this stuff. I could just all do it in Vice. I could do it. There's no sense in me really using real hardware or anything. But I just like to, right? I like doing it. And I do want to show you what one of our interfaces could be. So this is, like I said, this is the Atari. And I've got a real floppy disk hooked up here. Fastidious sent me this, and it was non-operational, and I baked the Pokey chip, and now it works. And so let's take a look at what's on this first floppy disk, right? So we're going to look at device 1, and that is going to be device 1 here would be, that's this guy right here, right? This 1050, which was not super common, I hear. This is a later model, but it still matches pretty good to the Atari 800, but it's a little later model. But we'll just, if we do this, it'll ask me, do I want to do E or P? E is for, so if my display could be a print, or I guess E stands for electronic. So it's going to send it to our screen instead. Like that's the two options. And so here we got our little light here, lighting up. It's reading from the floppy disk, 5 1/4, right? And we can pull it back over here, and it'll show us that this is what's on the disk. And you'll see it's got an ASCII it. And I didn't know what was on here. This is one of the floppy disks that came with it. It was actually disc 1 out of 24 different a personal collection. As you can tell, it's got basic on here, which did not come by default on the Atari 800. But it does have ASCII in it, and I was like, I bet that's the assembly editor, because that makes sense, right? What else is it gonna be? What else is gonna be? It's got to be that. So we're gonna load this up, and the question to me was, is it really an assembly editor, or is it just mostly a monitor, right? And what that means is, it means that I've just learned that information, and I'm going to share it with you now. So the monitor is less like a place where you would really program, and more like where you would troubleshoot if you were doing some assembly, because a monitor lets you kind of peek and poke at memory locations and the processor and its registries and that sort of stuff. So I believe this was somewhere in between. Usually would have like let's see. Okay, that's right. So we're going to type that in. Are we going to load it? Yes, we are. Run this file. Yes, we do want to run it after we load it into memory. And this is a 48 kilobyte Atari 800. You can hear the little beeps and bipes. Probably you're getting that. So that is to let you know that the data is loading. Right? It's the butt editor of the Wraith. All right, so when you start here, you get an edit screen. This looks kind of like somewhere between basic. It kind of looks like we're dropped at a basic kind of thing. But the question is, I'm trying to remember what the commands were. Like, let's see if we can... I'm trying to remember what... I looked this up about 2 weeks ago, and I've messed with so many assemblers and monitors since then. I don't remember some of the commands. Let me take a look. Now I know somebody probably that they're watching going, oh yeah, I remember ASCII editor for the Atari. And so this is going to allow us to, who remembers peeking and poking? Who remembers peeking and poking in BASIC? Kind of allowed you to do some interfacing with kind of passing off to machine language. You remember peeking and poking at the memory? Sector says nope, didn't peek or poke. Was that a thing that Ataris did? I'm sure they did a peeking and poke. A peeking and a poke. Peeking and a poking in Atari. The assembly editor is a 2-pass 6502 assembler in an 8 kilobyte cartridge. Both source and object code can be memory sufficient. Okay, so let's take a look to see if it'll give us a few little commands and stuff. We got debug. Okay, here we go. So we could probably type in, I do think I remember this part, bug. And now we're in a debug mode. This is more like the monitor part, right? And we'll get out of that with an X, right? Okay. but we could assemble in here too. I think actually what happens here is this is a full editor, if I remember correctly. So I think I can do a list, and there's nothing in the list. You would do a list if you had a basic program. You know, it's like you'd write 100, print hello, and then go to 100 and basic, right? Zoe says, I don't remember peeking and poking in basic, but it's been decades. I don't even think you even had to do it. I don't even think you had to even write it in your basic, but you could, like, just from the lines. You wouldn't have to like run it or anything. You could just do it right there. Eclectic Gamer says, I only heard about peek and poke recently, like 5 minutes ago, when you said peek and poke. So the real simplified way of saying it is, if you want to peek at a memory location on your computer, Commodore specifically was one I always did it on, or the VIC-20, Commodore 64 or VIC-20. If you would say, I want to peek at what's at this memory location, and memory locations could contain a myriad of things, but lots of times there were either, you know, maybe they had like a value in there, or of something that you wanted to find out about. It's like, oh, what's the value in that memory location? You would do a peek at that, and it would print out what was in that memory location. And then if you wanted to write to that location, you could poke it. So read, peek, write, poke. Poke, poke, poke. So yeah, it's real. It's kind of descriptive, and plus it's fun to say. It's fun to say, right? So let's see. So this is actually pretty decent here with what is a hello world? Man, that is a long hello world. Look at this. You know, and this will give you an idea of how the more simple the task, the less suited something like assembly is for. All right, so let's take a real quick peek at this, and I'll show you. This is on, I think this is Wikipedia. No, this is actually, yes, Wikipedia. Wikipedia has a little description here. Let me see here. Let's kind of zoom in a little bit. Let's zoomies in. Let's bring it up a little bit so you can see it. If you're kind of blind like me. If you're blind like me. Oh, that's too minis. That's too minis. All right. So this is just a Hello World 6502 code for the Atari. Eclectic Gamer says, got it, Brian. Don't cross the streams. Good talk. Yeah, you had to be careful with peeking and poking. See, the thing about the 8-bit computers that's a lot of fun, and also very dangerous, is there weren't a lot of guardrails necessarily. You would typically have access to every memory location, and you really could screw yourself up. And that was a lot of fun. But here's a hello world. You've done a hello world if you've done any type of programming, probably, including BASIC or anything else. Is just the most simple program you can think of typically printing something to screen or some type of output that just says hello world. That's it. That's the whole thing. Just like, I'm sending something to output. Hello world. And this is a hello world written for the assembly editor that we're looking at on this Atari 800, the asset edit. And got some comments up here. Those really, you don't have to have those, right? You don't have to. It helps if you're writing a program for somebody to see later. We're initializing some stuff here, but this is where the real meat of the code comes in. And look at all this stuff you got to do. You got to get in on. I got to get on all your stuff. You really got to get. You got to get low, get low, get low, get low, and you're just basically gonna, at the end, you're gonna hello world it. And these here are your commands. So you would assemble afterwards. So when we're in the editor, when we get through doing all of our action, we would assemble it, and we would go into debugging would allow us to essentially go to this line in memory, which is 600. It just goes back here. So it basically starts here where you could have had a comment, and then it just starts from here and says, oh, I want to run through some loops, some loop-de-loops. And when you get through, you exit. So that's most of the commands you would see in this assembly editor once you actually got down to the actual coding. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing in here right now, but I'm just curious what it would do if we tried to assemble nothing. What would it even tell us if we tried to assemble nothing? Yeah, just do it. It'll just assemble it. So this is what we're up against. To create, we're going to have to find the tools we want, right? We're going to find the tools we want. Might have to write our own tools at some point in time. That was typical of this era. And I'm going to bring you along for the journey. And we're gonna make our own video game, at least a prototype between now and the end of the year. We're going to try to. That's our goal. David says, no, the 600 it means is where it had. Okay. So I read that incorrectly. That's not the line. Is that the memory location? Is that what you're saying? Not line 600, David Aker says. So see, yes, I've got plenty to learn. See, David knows. David knows what I'm in for. So, yeah. So yeah, that does not say it. So is the Go 600 not saying go to what's in the in the memory? Because it's kind of the line numbers are also. I'll figure it out. Oh, Tweet says, hey, I'm a professional quality assurance analyst. If you need someone to test it, yeah. Oh, trust me, I'll probably know if it ain't working. But I'm going to take you up on that tweet. I'm going to take you up. Thank you for the follow, Sparky4. What is going on, Sparky4? Insano. But I've got so much to learn. But it's like anything else. I have a good grasp on programming because I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm just not well versed in the mnemonics that the assembler uses. I'm still trying to get my head around, how the subroutines work and how branching works. And it's just gonna take me a little bit to get my head around some of it. But once I do, I think it should move along pretty well. Eclectic Gamer says, have you decided what kind of game it's going to be, or has that not happened yet? So I've been trying to think about that. I definitely need to make sure that I don't bite off more than I can chew. So I'm going to try to keep it simple. So this is my concept of how I've been looking at it so far. I'm like, okay, let's pick one or two game mechanics and really focus on those. Like maze games should be fairly straightforward. Those didn't seem to be they seem to be a little simpler in logic when it comes to the programming part. It doesn't have to be. It could be outrageous. But I'm going to try to pick some game mechanics that are simple. I'm not going to try to throw in too many game mechanics. Not this first time around. I may have some pie in the sky stuff. I'm definitely going to set a few goals when I'm doing this. They're going to definitely be outside my comfort zone and going to be from a place of ignorance. That's where a lot of great games come from. This idea of having just enough information to think that maybe you could do it, and then you find out you can't, and then some people work through it regardless, right? So that's where sometimes your brilliance comes into video games, is your ignorance of what is not possible, because lots of times veterans will be in there so often they're like, no, you just can't do that. So don't even think about it. Don't even think about trying to solve the problem, because no one's ever solved the problem. So don't even look at it. That's not how we do it around here. We've never done it around here like that. So, you stay with what works. And if you primarily do just that, you got to stay within the framework of what usually works. But then if you pick one or two things that you're probably going to fail at, you may figure it out. You may get lucky. You'll probably fail. But that's what you want to do. At least that's been my philosophy. Fortanker says, I think it needs to be 4 podcasters searching vaults for the perfect bad movie. And that's not a bad idea either, right? Have some have some selectable items with some variety. That might be fun. That'd be good too. Yeah, happy little accidents. That's what you need, little happy little accidents. Trying to, bring some solutions that some people wouldn't even try. That's the good thing about being ignorant. You don't know how to say no. You just know how to say yeah. But you got to make sure that you can complete the project in time. Because people like that. Yeah, wraith failure is kind of required to learn. Yeah, it really is. And but yeah, so probably in the next couple of, so what I'm doing now is I'm going to go through those articles we talked about. If you're just joining now, we was talking about Compute's Gazette earlier, and I need to like afterwards I need to like write all this up so that we have and maybe post it in a blog or something, so we'll kind of have kind of like a mission statement of sorts, and so you guys can kind of follow along. But Machine Language for Beginners in Compute's very first magazine. There's a couple of years journey from learning to actual game in the programming section from Richard Mansfield, who also wrote a book about machine language. And I'm going to follow along offline and try to kind of condense and learn it as quickly as possible, and then try to see what's possible. I don't want to get too far because I don't want to know everything that's not possible, but I do want to have a general direction. You know, I want to break the maps out and set a general path before embarking on my my real journey, and then I will know a little bit better about what I'm up against, right? But yes, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. So what do you guys want from the 8-bit? So the local 8-bit computer club primarily is going to be a vehicle for me to keep my fires a burning with you guys, and a place to report back on my progress so far. But I also would love to get, you know, a little bit of feedback, and you don't have to. This is not required. Lurk, hang out, be here for the conversations, be here because you want to armchair quarterback what I'm doing. Whatever, doesn't matter. But I would enjoy people also taking the journey with me. David says, depending which hardware you decide to use, you will also want to pick up the book Mapping the Atari C64. Right. David, it's definitely going to be, I definitely foresee me, once I really get into it, doing it on my Commodore 64 Ultimate, and maybe popping back and forth on a real Commodore 64, because that is in line with my dream. The reason why I really kept the Atari 800 out is because I just got it operational, and I've been peeking and poking around on it, and it's just still on my desk. So it wasn't the 8-bit computer I needed, but it was the 8-bit computer that I had. And so by next week, I'll probably have relocated this one into a different location, and I'll have my Commodore 64 Ultimate back up here, and we'll kind of go from there. Eclectic Gamer says, I'm not a programmer, but I'm behind you, albeit about 1,000 miles behind you. Maybe you're an artist. Maybe you want to do some sprite work. You don't have to be a programmer. We could just, fiddle fart around. There'll be at least a couple of these where I'll bring some sprite work. I've got some graph paper that I've already picked up, and I can share my supplies that I have. Like, I'm not going to give you my supplies, but I can share with you where I got my supplies. And then maybe you want to also create some little Space Invaders, Pac-Man looking creatures, or as before Tank Girl said, maybe we'll make some little Pitfall looking podcasters. What do you think about that? Ooh, podcast Pitfall. Yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of music, Puppy Kitten Trout. I've done a little bit of movie production. I have general knowledge on music theory. I am certainly no talented performer who could perform live. I don't have those types of skills, but I do understand how to compose some very simple, very simple things that might be okay, and we'll get to learn some of those tools, and maybe I'll look at some things of the time that we might have used. Tweep says, you better be creating a few cool original characters because I want to do some fan art. Oh yeah, okay. Don't think I won't do that. Quick, get the name register, says TV Travis. Got to do it with the Pitfall podcasters. Capkeeper says there are sprite editors built in many utility cards like Super Snapshot. Yeah, and I'm curious about that because the programmer's disk. So if you had a Commodore 64, and specifically, I believe if you got the Commodore 1541 floppy drive, it came with a program disk. It wasn't a programmer's disk, but it was like a disk with programs on it. I want to say that it had some of those had a character editor and sprite editors, and that's important because I do understand at least the concepts of how to develop games. We may be in a situation where we have to either choose or don't choose between the built-in hardware sprites that the Commodore 64 uses, or we may use some of the make our own characters, like letter characters, character replacements, loading up character tables. I haven't decided on all that yet. I haven't decided exactly what path I'm going on that, but most likely we can use hardware sprites. And but yeah, TV Straps, I really want to work on music stuff this year, along with all the other stuff I want to do. I know, right? Puppy Kid Shot says, very cool. Wherever you design, make sure it's easy to cosplay. Right? It probably will, because it's going to be 8-bit sprites. It's going to be, get your foam out. Get your foam out. You're about to cut out some squares. Tolbert says, how many tones, what frequencies is the Atari 800 capable of? That's a really good question. I'm much more familiar with the SID chip, this in the Commodore 64. I have not explored the is it the same? Is it like, what do you have, like 3 square wave channels, and then you got like use like a noise channel or something like that? I'm not sure what frequencies and stuff they may have. 4 voices, says David Akers, but I don't know the range. Yeah, same. Oh yeah, absolutely. Captain Kipper, grab a copy of the C64 Programmer's Guide. You'll need kernel functions list. Yes, I will. You are correct, and that's one that I've been debating on. I've got it digitally, and it's available, and there's even like some more updated versions of it that I think is still basically the original, but they've made some small corrections and things. But you can order a spiral bound version of that, which is how I remember having the user's guide, and I remember wanting the programmer's guide, and it seems like it was that one of those spiral bounds, and you can order them now, and I may do that. Can you even cosplay Pong? Yes, you could. That would be amazing. Dover says, I used to try to figure out songs in BASIC, lots of Green Day and Led Zeppelin. Oh, dudes, I have an amazing, I found an amazing, it's not really amazing. I don't usually make it by FYE, is that right? For Your Entertainment, that place is usually in a lot of malls and stuff. But they happen to have, I don't usually like their shirts. I don't usually like all their merch. It's fine. But they had a really good quality Led Zeppelin Dark Side of the Moon kind of hoodie. It was kind of thin. You just never know what kind of quality shirt you're going to get from there. Sometimes they're too stiff or too, it's just like, I don't like this. I don't like these prints. Blah, blah. Did I say Led Zeppelin? Sorry, my bad. Yeah, Pink Floyd? What? Did Pink Floyd? We need some Pink Floyd? Want to do some Green Day? What you want? But the Dark Side of the Moon, I got that. Yeah, man, I'm like all over the place. Captain Kipper says SID players were just coming out when I switched to a new PC from the Commodore 64. Yeah, Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd. You try to jump in and out of modern times and in the 80s and the 70s and everything else. Let me see if they have a picture of this wear that I had. Pink Zeppelin. Let's see. FYE. I don't want the wall. Final Cut. Nope. Oh, we got the ads. Wait, that sounds inappropriate. Let's see here. 50th anniversary. Oh, that's just the vinyl. I need that. All right, here we go. Pink Floyd, Pink Zeppelin is what I meant to say. Oh, Anonymous gifted a tier 1 sub to TV's Travis. Enjoy your ad-free viewing for the month, TV's Travis. But we do have an ad coming in. If you experience ads for more than 4 hours, consult your doc. So I think I allowed the ads to be automatic, but I'm still not sure what Twitch is doing. But it seems like we're getting fewer ads. It's still just not working in the way we think. But Captain Kipper did confirm I got it on. I got into OMD and Depeche Mode because of demos on the C64. Yeah, well, I had to talk about the demo scene a little bit too. Oh, but yeah, the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. I got that shirt. It's really it's a hoodie. It's really thin and nice, and it's got a nice big print on the back of it. And it's a real flexible print, right? It's really nice and soft instead of being like, big solid, like somebody pressed it on there, which I hate those. But I don't usually like stuff from FYE as far as clothing goes because it just usually doesn't wear really well for me. But that was a really nice one. Swinth demo had some great tunes, says Captain Kipper. Interesting. Tober says I have a shirt with the version that's the Star Trek. That Will Wheaton that Will Wheaton was selling a few. Oh, I don't remember that one. Let me take a look at that. Is that still out there? Dark Side of the Trek. Let's see. All right, so that's where we're headed. That's where we're going. That's what we doing. All right. What else? I think that's about it. So, all right. So on our list, I need to take notes. So on our list, we need to get our resources together, right? I want to share some of those things. Set our path down so we can talk about that and how we're going to get there. And then I'll have links so you guys can follow along if you care to. We'll have to set up some way to kind of report our progress. All right. I've got my work cut out for me. But the good news is I'm having so much freaking fun. I'm having a ton of fun. And I also need a good source. If someone wants to like kind of right now, I feel like this 8-bit computer club, it needs a couple of things. It needs a few more graphics, right? Maybe a little better. Your local 8-bit computer club. I need to finally settle on what I want to call this thing. I need some interaction, so I need to maybe put the chat on stream, which may be more doable now that because I usually don't put the chat on stream because we have a merged chat from YouTube and Twitch, and now recently Twitch has finally allowed you to put that on screen. Before it was a no-go. You couldn't do it. You couldn't have a mixed chat on screen. You could do it in the regular chat and stuff, but you couldn't have it on screen. Now you can. So maybe I'll need to think about how our presentation goes. But I also want to add a music bed. So we got to find some 8-bit copyright free 8-bit music kind of stuff to kind of like put a little music bed below that. And then we need to start bringing snacks. All right. That's what a great computer club should have. Some great stories to share experiences, a little corner to talk about what you're excited about trying next. So share stories, what you're doing next, maybe nice little music in the background, maybe a little banner for our cool little computer club here. Maybe we'll get some t-shirts. So we'll feel bonded, right? So we'll feel bonded. We need minutes, right? We gotta have some minutes. We gotta get some matching tattoos. All right, we've got our work cut out for us. 4 Tank Girl Brian was streaming from another location today. Not sure why. I need to catch up on what's going on. Yeah, you do. What was he doing? So my matching spiral bound notebooks. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. All right, I think this is starting to really form up. Some pencil protectors with logos? Absolutely. And I would like to do that. So I've never been to an actual 8-bit computer club. So if you want to hit me up on Discord and say, oh, these are some of the things that made those 8-bit computer clubs great. Like I've seen some YouTube videos where it's like, like when they, maybe not the computer clubs, but like the get-togethers, somebody always like brings like here's a pile of disc that no one's using anymore. Take what you want, shared library stuff. Brian Brushwood says, I figured that's what he was talking about. Somebody else. I actually thought it was going to be Brian Ibbett, but Brian Brushwood, yeah. There's a couple of us. Yeah, absolutely. We need to have Zoe bringing us the snacks and the bacon. There'll be bacon wrapped everything. 14 Girl says, got to sit on uncomfortable metal chairs in the circle and awkwardly shuffle. And at least one person's got to bring some, a guitar to kind of sing us out. I think that should be a thing. I think each week somebody needs to play us out on guitar. I think we should 8-bit theme song that we definitely should do, right? Cam Kipper says I was in a C64 club and 2 different Atari clubs back in the 80s. So I'm going to tap you for some information, Captain. Because I want this to feel kind of authentic. Because like I said, I'm trying to emulate the possibility of if I had been older and more capable, how far could I have ran with this? Dr. Tolbert is like quickly, feverishly looking up personalized pocket protectors. And guess what? They're only 70 cents a piece because that's how much a pocket protector should cost. It is inflation proof. That's how much it cost back in 1975, and that's how much it cost in 2026. Fort Tecker says my dad would buy a 6-pack for the ride home. Yes. That sounds great. Cap says, by the way, Commodore CA has a huge archive of magazines in PDF. All right. I think did I start? Okay, so I started a channel on the Discord server. If you want to post any of that kind of stuff, Captain Kipper, we'll kind of tentatively consider that our hub for now until we can come up with maybe an online presence. And I want to do a bulletin board, but that's just too much. That's too much. That'll be too distracting. That'll be too distracting. We may get this game before GTA 6. I do want to share something with you guys. Like I feel like if I was in an 8-bit computer club for real, which this is, what I'm talking about, if this real 8-bit computer club we're experiencing right now, I would definitely bring some of the stuff that I found, right? And this is something that I found at the thrift store this past week. It needs a little bit of love and care, but it's a Sears item, right? It comes from Sears. It's called the Digital Diamond, the push button baseball game. 410 Girl says she remembers this one. Yeah, Sears. There's your little item number there. It's gonna require a little bit of love, but it's not too bad. Hopefully. So I see that the contacts themselves, somebody probably left some batteries in this thing. So it got a little green in there. I need to clean up the contacts, but they don't look ate up, right? They don't look like they've been eaten up. They do have a little surface tarnish there, right? I'll have to clean those up. And there was no back plate. I'm assuming probably I'm not going to have any luck finding just this back plate on eBay or anything. So I'm probably going to look at maybe 3D printing something. So I'm going to have to do some measurements and see if I can figure out exactly how to do that. But this should be a pretty low risk kind of fix. But we'll play with this. I never. Oh, listen to that. So there's some mechanical parts to it as well. Okay. So okay. Wait. There's some mechanical parts to this that actually function. So this is both digital and mechanical. Let me turn the filters off here and let's see if you guys can hear any of this. So there's let's see, over here there's a little spring that I pulled and it's cocked, kind of like, and then if I push one of these, Yeah, Cap Kipper, they may have already done that. A little mechanical sound, all right. Cap says, I got a replacement for my Merlin. Very good. But, yeah, this will be kind of like a little bonus extra thing. We'll kind of mess around a little bit. You had the football one as well? I've got the Mattel. I have the old school Mattel version as well. Okay. Radical dude. All right. Hey, look. I think Tonda Gosa is still online. Let's see if Tonda's online. Tonda's always doing something on Sundays, and if anytime we can raid in on Tonda, that is a good night. So we're gonna do that. He's been on for 7.5 hours, and he's probably getting ready to come out, but that's too bad. We're gonna raid in on him anyway. He can just deal with it. No, it looks like he's still playing. He's on the Mister, it looks like. But thank you guys for hanging out tonight. And remember, this has been your local 8-bit computer club, and we need a theme song, and we need some snacks, and we need to... But you're coming back just for this. We'll be back again next Friday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, March the... What is that? March the 6th. But I'll be back tomorrow night for Play Retro Video Gaming. David Eckers, thanks for a great meeting. Thank you so much. And we'll have to take some meeting minutes next time. Start firming this up and formalizing it a little bit. But let's raid in on Tonda Gosa, one of my good friends in real life and who I look forward to seeing this year. But thank you guys for hanging out, and we'll do this again. We'll hang out tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for just general. We're going to do playing Echo the Dolphin for this week's Play Retro show. So there we go. Captain Kipper, sorry I missed most of it. No, that's okay. I should have been a little more communicative about this and really pumped it up. But we had our community event on Friday, so we do that once a month, and we're still finalizing this thing. All right, we'll see you over there. Let's do it. He's playing some Uni Racers. Woo!